I'm Jamie S. Rich. I've been working in comics for 20 years. Join me as we dig a little deeper into how comic books are made and get to know the people who make them. This is From the Gutters.
All right, so we've moved downstairs from Matt's kitchen and into his art studio because we want to take a look at basically your art process today. We've talked a lot more probably about writing so far, but I'd like to see kind of how you put a page or a cover together, if you've got some examples of that.
Sure. Well, and in fact, we can talk about a couple of things. Not only the art process, but also the storytelling process. We were talking a little bit earlier about me writing plot and dialogue fashion. So whenever I'm working on an individual issue, which tends to be 22 pages, I do up a flow chart like this.
Okay.
And so it has the page numbers listed, and then I have a little connector to show me which pages face each other.
Oh, nice.
And then I'll go through and I'll just jot down just tiny little notes about what happens on each page. And so in effect, I'm working on the entire story as a sketch. I get to look at it visually. I get to look at how it flows. Like it'll build up here, and then, it flows down here, and then of course, there's Will Eisner's old adage that if these two pages are facing, you really want your final panel, either at the bottom of the page or the bottom right-hand corner of the page, to be quite captivating in order to make the reader turn the page. Right. And similarly, then, of course, you're building up to the final climactic cliffhanger of, to be continued, come back next month. So it's very rare that I do what you just saw me do there, which is
draw an actual panel.
Draw actual panels. Now, I mean, it is literally just.
So you're working with words. You're not even really sketching.
Yep.
Because I remember once knowing you gave advice to artists if they can do their thumbnails small like this and with a big pen.
Yeah, the story you're referring to there is back in the Image days when Image was the hottest game in town. I had a bunch of these young image artists come to me at San Diego one year, and they said, "Oh my God, you've got to teach us how to tell a story. Please show us how to tell a story." And they showed me their stuff, and every one of them drew 1,000 times better than I draw. Every little detail was there, but you couldn't make sense one of what was going on the page. Every crack of glass, every bullet, every shine off of every facet of the gun, every detail you would possibly want. And so finally what I told them is, look, do your layouts this big, 1 inches by 2 inches. If you can't, in tiny little stick figure thumbnails, tell yourself what's going on, then you don't have the foundation necessary to make it bigger, to make it more complex, to make it more sophisticated.
So I've passed that on multiple times throughout the years as an editor. And actually would particularly appreciate that you're thinking about what pages face each other. Because the amount of times we've had double page spreads fall
on 3 and 4 as opposed to 2 and 3,
so do you do any other outline as opposed to this, or do you just work completely off of that?
This is it.
And so you go straight from
This is it. I have a blank space here where if I want to make a few notes, I can jot them down here.
Gotcha.
But I go to straight script form off of this. Basically what I'm doing here is just pacing out how many pages I have, and then let's say, so here I have, it says Old Couple in Chinatown. Here's something. And then you turn the page and you see what they're hearing. But let's say I get to a point where some action is happening. The shadow shows up and there's gangsters. I might just go, fight.
Gotcha.
And I know I'm going to make that fight last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages. And I don't need to, I'll pace that out when I'm actually writing it. I don't need to know at this stage what that is. Unless something very specific happens, which leads me into page 12, But again, I'm looking at everything as a visual flowchart. That's what I meant by I write like an artist.
Right, yeah. No, I might want to steal that one of these days just to give it a try.
Yep. So then I do the same thing with if I'm working on a cover. So this is for the Shadow, which I'm currently writing the Shadow Year 1 for Dynamite. And I'm doing the cover art as well. I'm always paying attention to this crucial big chunk of type here at the top, the logo, because it's such a significant graphic. Everything has to revolve around that. So when I'm working on something like this, I just trace out a comic, and I do on my light table, I do a quick trace, and then I just run out a bunch of them on my Xerox machine, so I have a bunch of blanks ready to go.
Okay.
Because, I don't always hit it the first time. I'll screw them up, throw it out, screw them up, throw it out. But in this upcoming issue, I'm thinking about using some graphic elements. And we were talking there about doing research for the myth. I love doing research in a historical sense as well. This storyline's set in 1930, and I just had to send the artist a correction because I have in the 4th issue I have a car drive past Radio City Music Hall, and I realized that wasn't built till 1932. So, so I had to switch it to something else.
And yeah, someone will notice that.
Oh, no, everybody should notice that, And in fact, I have a sequence coming up that has to do with the construction of a certain building that is very famous. And
So you say you don't usually do like traditionally finished pencils, but you do another version after like this.
I do
sketch.
it. This is just the very sketch stage. And here I will show you. So this will be a tiny bit confusing because these are all different covers, but so after I do this very, very sketchy one, I tend to do a more complete one like this. Here again, this is from the Green Hornet, so I have the Green Hornet logo up there. And then I'll take this and I'll blow it up on my Xerox machine to the working size. So then this is what my final pencils look like. This is a Xerox of the actual pencils.
Okay.
And if you'll notice, there's no indications of blacks. It's all just contour. I have a little bit of rendering there, but it's all just contour, and I work everything else out in the inking stage.
And what do you ink with? You use brush or you pen?
No, I tend to use these Pitt Artist's pens. They have several different nibs. This is actually the brush nib, which can be thick or
I gotcha.
thin. And this is actually getting a little worn out. What I do is, when they start to run out of ink, I carve off part of the barcode. I scratch off the part of the barcode to let me know how live it is. So if almost all the barcode's gone, it's practically dead. But at this stage, I'm just blocking in shapes, I'm looking for drama. At this point, the shadow's looming over the city. So there's his head. So do I want him looking at us? Do I want that famous shadow profile with his nose?
So how long does it take you then to do basically from this to the finished inked version?
Oh, if I was starting this in the morning, I'd be close to done with the inked version by the afternoon. I'm pretty...
How do your average days break down then? You start working pretty early?
Yeah. I'm married to a school teacher, so we're both up quite early. She gets up at 5:45. And that's good. I'm kind of a morning person. I'm a lark, not an owl. And I always find that, if I get right to work, by noon I have a whole bunch done, and then the rest of the day is just gravy,
Gotcha. And so do you tend to work up till 4 or 5? Or?
About 4 or 5, and then I hit the grocery store to get what I need for dinner.
The $1 million question is always...
Mage 3.
Mage 3.
Yep. Well, that will probably be the next thing, for sure.
Because there's always an element to Mage that you're a little bit ahead of... Because Mage has an auto-bio element to it.
Yeah, but it's
filtered through a lot of different things.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But you're usually a little bit ahead of what you're writing.
In my actual life, you mean?
So yeah, do you feel that you're reaching a point to where now you can look back at what you're gonna?
Yep, absolutely.
Why do you choose to go that route with the personal stories instead of like seeing your buddies with Joe Matt? We're in Peep Show. Why say do it in a sort of...
I guess because I'm not doing just sheer autobiography, I am equating it to a certain mythic reality. And in that case, then I need to consider it more. I need to think about its place in my life, its archetypical reality as it applies to great mythic motifs.
Have you ever had anybody still object to how their character maybe came across? Because Mage 2 also had the very sweet element of you basically courting your wife.
Yep.
I mean, she was your wife at the time. You weren't courting her through the comics, but it relays that early romance.
Yeah, absolutely, yep.
Does she ever have any critique in how you draw her, or?
No, but at one point the both her and the kids were trying to give me ideas about what should happen in Mage 3, and I just had to tell them, look, I'm the one writing Mage 3. This is not a democracy here. So, and in fact, the page, I don't know if you noticed, but other than my studio here, I don't have any of my own art on display in the house. Part of that is just the way I look at my art. It's always a process for me. If I had it hanging up in the house, it would intrude too much on my life. It would become my life as opposed to how I describe things about my life. And I would only focus on what I didn't like about it because I'm always on to the next thing. So I would only look at like the finger I don't like on some guy's hand. In fact, the stuff behind you here, whenever I look at it, even down here, I mean, I'm looking right now at the parts I would redraw. But the only piece of art that's on display on our house up next to our bed is the page where Kevin and Magda kissed for the first time. I gave that to Barb for Christmas one year.
Well, there's an element to Grendel where you keep revisiting Hunter Rose and kind of even like a very specific parts of his story. And you've talked about before how Hunter has changed in your mind over the years and become less romantic and more evil. Is there an element to revisiting those moments that are giving you a chance to get it right? Or is it really just reflecting your point of view?
It's more reflecting my more mature point of view. But I can't deny it's not fun coming back and doing an evil motherfucker. You know, that's just great fun. Because you can really cut loose and just have this totally unburdened sort of approach to things.
So you're currently, the main thing you're working on is Shadow, and you're working on the Tower Chronicles.
Yeah, which I'm just writing.
But you co-created that with Thomas Tull?
Yep.
How did that come out? Like, how much of that was pre-existing?
Well, that was one of the reasons I took that project. Again, always looking for a challenge, you know. And in Mage, I have my total one-man show. And in Grendel, I have more of a collaborative thing, but I'm still, you know, boss of the walk there. Whereas with the Tower Chronicles, Thomas Tull, who's the owner of Legendary Pictures, had started a comic book company, Legendary Comics. And our old buddy Bob Schreck's the editor-in-chief, and Thomas had an idea for a character, and he said to Bob, find me a writer who's a well-respected writer who will be able to develop this from what I have into a full-fledged narrative. And I want somebody that isn't afraid to tell me no, that isn't afraid to tell me when my ideas don't work. And so, you know, Bob said, you were the first one I called. And sure enough, you know, there was enough there to work with, but there was stuff that I just said, this is not going to work, or this is too close to this other thing. And yeah, it was a challenge to take somebody else's sketch and turn it into a finished piece. But, you know, I'm always looking for a challenge. I thought it was great fun.
It's turning out really good.
Yeah, it's a blast.
There's 4 issues, and then the collection's about to come, and it's still going. So
that's the first book. It'll be a trilogy, yeah.
All right, well, thanks, Matt. Now that we've seen your process and how you prepare a cover, let's head back upstairs. Let's see how you prepare a meal.
Oh, the fun part.